Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Rational Female Podcast. And today we've got the usual panel. So, what we're going to be doing today is seeing if we can come to some agreement on gender equality. What does gender equality mean? Are we in favor of it? What is our overall viewpoint? So, I'm going to have each of our full panelists today each speak for a few minutes and kind of rebuttal one another in a quite civil format. So I hope you guys will enjoy. So to kick us off first, we've got Jana from Women Against Feminism. And when you hit 4 minutes, I'm just going to go like that. So please stop talking when I go like that or start to wrap up your point. So Jana, kick us off. So how can we resolve / reach gender equality? How can we kind of bridge the gap between feminism and gender equality?
Okay, I think the major thing here is that they often say when you're talking to someone or when you're arguing with someone, instead of saying, no, you're wrong, you should first validate whatever it is they're saying. Say, oh, I see your point of view, and then give your rebuttal and so on. And I think there's a lot of that within the discourse between feminist and anti-feminist or gender equalist or traditionalist or whatever, right? So I think it's really important that both sides try to make their argument palatable. And I think it's especially important really for the feminist side or so on to make their argument palatable, I suppose, because I'm coming at this from my perspective, which was initially at least a traditionalist perspective. So what I want to explain is that among all of the groups, like if you take feminist, anti-feminist, gender equalist, and traditionalist, and all these different sets of people, I think the one thing that ties all sides, all humans together, or anybody who decides to get passionate about these topics in any way, shape, or form, is that actually all sides believe in equality. I know it doesn't seem like it, but it is true. If you speak to traditionalists who actually see themselves as real traditionalists who have been upset by feminists to the point where they become activists and say, you know, I'm a traditionalist, I hate feminism, and start a whole movement, which I have been a part in these groups and so on. If you speak to these people, the reason they get upset by feminism, the reason that they get driven to fight feminism is simply because they see feminism as a form of inequality. Feminists, on the other hand, who get upset with traditionalists and see traditional setups and they're like, traditionalists are horrible, we need to get rid of this patriarchy and traditional society. The reason they are passionate is because they see traditionalism as inequality. So both sides are looking at something and they're saying, hey, this is inequality, we need to make this equal. This is a human trait, okay? Humans like justice, they like equality, they like fairness. And I think both sides need to be open to what the other side is saying, because there's truth on both sides about what the other person is seeing that is unfair and unequal and not justice, right? So solutions. The major thing that we need in terms of solutions is, one, listening to and validating the other side. So validating what the other person sees as unequal and unfair, because often there's truth to it. And just like making your message palatable to the other side by validating what they see as an unequal. And so, my major solution is just to ask both sides, but more or less more the feminist side, because I think the feminist side is really, really close-minded towards the traditionalist point of view. And I think traditionalists, many of them are too, I'll give them that, but many of them do see a bit of what feminists are saying. It's just that feminists don't at all acknowledge what traditionalists are saying in terms of inequality. So my point is just, if feminists want to change the mind of traditionalists, they need to make their message more palatable, and they need to listen to what traditionalists are saying is unfair about feminism, and basically just assuage those fears, soothe those.
Okay, thanks, Jana. So I would now like to hear one of the pro-feminists give a rebuttal. It appears her screen is frozen. That's fine. We'll let that be resolved. So Alex or Andrew, one of you please
I
come
don't
in
know if
and respond to what she has said.
Okay, can I come in?
Yep, go for it.
So yeah, I think that's I agree, or I hear I hear what Jan is saying very much. I find it's very fascinating to me because even the way you framed it right at the beginning, Zarina, which is the choice between gender equality or feminism, which to me is like, again, like from last time we talked, it's a bit like, well, I don't see a difference between those two things. Feminism is a movement that is striving for gender equality. That's what feminism is for, or that's what it sees itself as for. So this idea that you can separate feminism and gender equality seems very odd to me, because that the whole point of feminism is to achieve gender equality. So it's like, what are we even? How do we get to this point where people perceive feminism to be anti-equality? And I kind of get it in a way, but I think the thing that I reckon feminists would struggle with in terms of having this conversation, and Jana put it in terms of traditionalism, which is to me maybe slightly the crux of the issue, which is, if you think about traditionalism as in the way things are now and the way things have been historically. So if we're thinking about traditional societies, traditional gender roles, traditional, ways of doing things, a feminist would say that's all been unequal this whole time. The whole reason for feminism is to create more opportunities and liberation for women, right? Like, that's the whole kind of idea. So the idea that feminism is unequal because it's trying to shift things in women's favor, I think it's a kind of problem of perspective, isn't it? Because, like, if you just look at feminism in a vacuum, and yeah, lots of feminists are saying women need more opportunities, women need more laws, women need this, women need that, right? Like, that's what feminists are saying. So I can understand why you would think, oh, you're just focusing on women and you're ignoring men, you're ignoring everything else, right? But the context of traditionalism, of, I guess, patriarchy, of like the status quo being itself unequal in favor of men, and feminism is trying to tip the balance not in favor of women, but back towards women, so that there can be gender equality. I think that's what a feminist would say, or that's how feminists see things. And I understand that plenty of people don't agree with the assessment that things right now are unequal. I know Tim doesn't agree with that. I know there's lots of things you can say about how men are discriminated against in lots of different ways, and how the feminist view of traditional society is perhaps flawed or, factually inaccurate or what have you. But I suppose, yeah, again, the mindset shift, I guess, would be for me, it would be really great if people didn't see feminism as anti-equality, because it's not. It's like, it's the exact opposite. It's seeing the world tipped one way, and it's trying to push it back towards a level of equality. That's what it's trying to do. So I suppose in terms of mindset shifts, you don't have to kind of accept the rhetoric or accept any of that, but you can kind of see it's not trying to do that, it's trying to do that, right? So I guess, but from what Jana said, I guess the mindset shift for feminists should be, if you're anti-feminist or you don't agree with the feminist perspective, that doesn't de facto mean you're a misogynist or you're a bad person or you're factually wrong, or, there's lots of things to say about how men's lives, and how maybe we're not really seeing certain things about the male experience that could be improved. And again, like, why don't we focus on trying to make everybody's lives better, not just women's lives? But I think I think you really have to get the context of feminism being about that things are tipped against women so much that there needs to be a focus on women in order to rebalance the scales. Like that's the idea. So I guess if we're starting somewhere, it's a bit like, okay, that's the idea, and let's see if we can kind of talk about that rather than sort of say feminists are anti-equality, I think.
So when I go like that, please start to wrap up your points so we don't so we make sure everyone has a chance to speak. But yeah, that's fine. Okay, so Tim, what would you like to say in response to that? Just be mindful when I say that. Just try not to go over too much. Yeah.
Okay, so on the one hand, there's feminism, and on the other hand, there's kind of like nothing. In my view, that makes feminism a kind of ideological dictatorship that has controlled our belief system for so long. We only know the one half. In my judgment, you see, feminism is the male power, female victimization half of gender reality, presented and demanded to be accepted as if it were gender reality in its entirety, which it is not. What's the problem that I see? As we're going to talk about solutions, let's just get to the problem. The problem is that we've been led to believe, and it's not just feminism, it's also a product of chivalry, instinct, and eros. We've been led to believe that men have the power, women are the victims. This is a belief system that guarantees maximum intersex rage, rancor, resentment, victim, vengeance motives, and self-righteousness. It makes it impossible to even talk about intersex fairness, forgiveness, gratitude. Instead, we think only of man bad, the overempowered oppressor, woman good, the innocent victim. And this is the problem. That's it right there. What we need is a new gender-neutral gender politics that looks at both sides, that would continue to address any and all women's issues. It just wouldn't address women's issues exclusively. What we need, in my view, the path from hell to healthy is all paved in bedrock gender truth. Throughout history, man has been more respected but less loved, woman more loved but less respected. The enormous consequences and vast repercussions suffered by women for being less respected have been matched in full by the enormous consequences and vast repercussions suffered by men for being less loved. But because men are less loved, less empathized with, the male half of gender politics does not tug at our hearts. We need men to be strong and silent. We need men to do what men are supposed to do. Man up and keep the whole infrastructure going. We can't have men being weak. We can't have men being vulnerable. We need men to be men. For thousands of years, we've needed men to be men. Things have changed, obviously. The whole world has transformed so drastically. But for thousands of years, we needed men to defend us from the enemy that both sexes feared. The enemy out in the dark there that we didn't know and didn't understand, that threatened us, or seemed to. So we needed men to be men. We needed men to be strong. We needed men to be competent. We needed men to have toughness, strength, courage. And now we're at this whole new juncture. Everything started changing all the way back in the 50s. I mean, we call that a traditional period, but that was unprecedented. The unions and paid vacations and superhighways and telephones, and what was traditional about it? There was a completely new world. And from there, we've been continuously evolving in our gender outlook and so on. But we're still stuck in men have the power, women are the victims. You see, if we're going to be truly progressive, if we're going to seek solutions, we need to embrace the facts and truths that are missing. Okay, so those are the facts and truths of female power and male victimization, the facts and truths that go on the other end of the balance beam, allowing for the possibility in the future of woman and man calling it even and moving on to a much more constructive era of intersex relations and intersex politics. So, there.
Okay. Alex, would you like to come in and say something in response to that, please?
So from my point of view, it's the problems that, from a feminist point of view, the problems come from a system that not any specific individual made on their own. And it's the gender roles that feminism wants to, kill, I would say, that make men feel, again, I'm just referring to stigma. If we want to solve this problem, we have to be okay with men and women being as open as each other at the things that there is stigma against being open about. And that is typically because of gender roles of men strong. The only emotion you can have is anger. And if there's anything else, any other emotion that's not anger or frustration, that's weakness, and men can't be weak. I mean, it's all anecdotal, but like, I'm a product of that, and I don't see that as I don't see that as like that should be part of feminism. I would say where the gender equalists, I don't think the traditionalists though, but I think with the gender equalists, I can see that, like, where am I going with this? Feminism can seem like it's pro-woman and it focuses more on women. And I think there are men who can be feminists who can bring the male problems to the table with the women who are bringing the women's problems. For the men who are pro-feminism, we can, like, do our part in bringing up. So the woman here, the feminist woman, is saying this about the women. I can say as a feminist man, this is about the men. How do we fix this problem? But I think being like actually anti-feminism, it's like, so we still want to solve the same. We still all live in reality. We still want to solve the same problem, that men feel like they can't open up, and they're killing, unaliving themselves at higher rates than women, because women can go to their girlfriends and have a glass of wine and be as open as, there's no stigma against that. The men have to get really drunk to be sentimental to their other mates. It's just not, in terms of the emotional aspect of it, it's not equal. And I guess the gender equalist would say, or Tim, sorry, would say, we need to break down the stigma. Would you agree with me that we need to break the stigma of men not being able to be manly, but also not being able to be feminine, because anything that's not anger is seen as feminine and weak?
Yeah, it's one of many men's issues is women seem to have a carte blanche for moving between the realms of male and female, where men are kind of more rigidly stuck just to be within the realms of men. I think that I agree with that. And I think that's part of a plethora of men's issues. Yeah.
Yeah, Andrew, go for it.
Yeah, can I? Yeah, so Tim, I'm sort of fascinated with what you said, Tim, about when you started, I felt a little bit frustrated because I thought you were just going to repeat what you've been saying this whole time. But then I started trying to listen to what you were saying, and you said, yeah, you've introduced this interesting paradox where you've said that we, and I think when you said we, you mean feminism.
Yeah, society, I guess. Yeah.
We need men to be strong and silent, which I
in the past,
which I took to mean we need to ignore their needs in order to maintain this fiction that men are in power and women are victims. Like that's what I sort of understood from what you were saying. But the fascinating, like for me, feminism, like part of one of the core aspects of feminism is that it is a problem that men are strong and silent. that men have that they're emotionally impervious, that they lack empathy, that they don't have any way of opening up, that they don't talk about their problems, that they just bury everything inside, that they put all that on work and power and violence, right? That's the whole problem from the feminist perspective. And I feel like you're touching on something possibly quite interesting, which is maybe a kind of catch-22, where it's like, how can you say that men, to uphold this idea of patriarchy, you have to say that men are all powerful, but then you're also saying that men need to not be that to solve the problem. So it's, in a way, it's a
well, men were never all powerful. Wherever
I know,
one sees a patriarchy, I see a patramatriarchy. I see a male-female balance of power that has always been. That there's great power in being more loved. The power that comes of being more respected is obvious, but there's also enormous power in being more loved.
Yeah, exactly. So a feminist might say it would be wonderful if men could open up, go to therapy, work on themselves, and then that means that they're going to have less dysfunctional drive to ambition, to control, all that stuff, right? That's what the feminists would say. And that would solve all the problems, right? If men worked on themselves and opened up and then became less kind of fucked up, sorry, Zarina, less messed up, and then the world would be much better, right? That's kind of one of the ideas. So like, I kind of feel like you're trying to say something
all right,
similar.
but wait a sec now. Once men start opening up and becoming vulnerable and coming to realize all the many ways in which they are victimized, that they are 16 times as likely to die on the job, that they represent 85% of the street homeless that don't even have a shelter to go to at night. Yeah. Once men started becoming vulnerable and started speaking up, they got called the manosphere. They got called.
No, you can't. No, that's not the same thing. No.
Let him finish his point. Go on.
Suddenly, as soon as men started speaking up, they became the enemy. They became the patriarchy speaking out to, men are all throughout the 90s, back when Warren Farrell was in charge. Yeah, go ahead, Jana. You haven't spoken.
I want to touch on something that Alex said then. He said the gender equalists and the feminists could sort of agree, like he can see their point, but traditionalists are a separate thing, right? Which is absolutely true, in my opinion, right? I think gender equalists and feminists have much more in common. It's a much easier road or much shorter thread between gender equalists and feminists than there is between, traditionalists are a whole nother thing. However, there are a lot of traditionalists, so I don't think that we can ignore the traditionalist thing when we talk about feminism, right? And Tim, you also said on the one side we have feminism and on the other side we have nothing. But I think feminists would disagree, and I would also agree with them when they say on the one side you have feminists and on the other side what you have is traditionalism, right? So again, I'm going to speak a little bit from the traditionalist.
I don't see that, but okay. I don't think that's true, because I think feminism is a gender politics.
They're both gender politics.
It's a politicized female perspective, and we're not seeing a politicized male perspective in traditionalism. So we're not really seeing an opposition.
But I think feminism, they see themselves as fighting. Feminists see themselves as fighting traditionalism, right? So they would argue that they are actually a response to traditionalism. So on the one side, there's feminism or equality or egalitarianism, and on the other side, there's traditionalism. Now, because you have a lot of traditionalists in society, imagine growing up as a traditionalist person, right? And you are taught, whether through church or however, you are taught that this is equality. What it is that women do one set of things and men do another. These are the gender roles, right? The gender roles are that women do X, Y, Z, the men do X, Y, Z. You grow up as a traditionalist and you think, well, that's fair because I get to do this, but I can't do this. He gets to do this, but he can't do this. There's some sort of equality and you're fine with it. So you are fine with that system and you see that as equality, right? Then
there is a balance to the traditional system. It's not a good system. Balance is not the same as
not the best system,
good, but there was a balance to it.
Exactly. It doesn't consider a lot of people, but as an individual who is traditionalist, you don't know that. It's like
Right.
if you're heterosexual, but you don't know that gay people exist. Okay, so as a traditional person,
You laugh, but that
it's
used
true,
to be
but
that
this
was
is the
that was
reality.
pretty much true.
Yeah, because of
50
But this is
stigma,
the
50 years
reality.
ago.
I'm
Yeah,
telling you
well,
this as a traditionalist
Crikey.
person. This is the reality of most people, right?
Am
You
I just
grow up,
living in
you're
La La
fine
Land?
with the gender roles. You don't have a problem with it. You don't know that there are other people who have problems with it, right?
uh-huh.
And then all of a sudden, someone comes out and says, wait a minute, that system is wrong because women, because women, because women, because women. And they say nothing about what's going on the male side. Your immediate response would be, hey, what you're saying is unfair because men also can't. Men also can't. Men also can't. So you are misrepresenting what is going on in traditionalism. Now, I'm not now it's not that traditionalism is good or right or fair or whatever, but from the traditional perspective, the person is viewing that system as fair because they are viewing the disadvantages and the advantages on both sides.
Right.
And they have weighed both sides and said, okay, that's fair. Then if a feminist or somebody comes and says, no, women, 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 the immediate response is, oh, but also you've forgotten about men. So from my perspective, when I encountered feminism, my problem was, hey, men have this problem. Then I encountered MRAs, and what I found in the manosphere, what you would call, is gender equalism, which is not the same as traditionalism. And to me, that
Right,
was an
it's not the same, that's
absolutely new. Right. To me, that was a completely new, strange idea, but it
Yeah.
was fair.
The
So
title
what I
of
can
my
say
book
that
is
I can't-
Loving
I
Men,
can't-
Respecting Women, the Future of Gender Politics,
Right,
the
so what
exact
I can
opposite
say-
of tradition.
So what
Yeah,
I
I
can say
think-
is that I can't fight what MRAs or gender equalists are saying, because what they're saying is fair. What they're saying is actually just, it's equal. It's not, they haven't perverted traditionalism into something that is completely unfair. What they're saying is that they are different from traditionalists. It's like saying, I'm gay, you're heterosexual. What they're saying is that I don't feel comfortable in a traditionalist setup. I want equality. And equality looks like this. And I think traditionalists can totally agree with gender equalists on something like that, because what they're speaking about is just fairness, whereas feminists leave out too much and they misrepresent traditionalism.
I do agree.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do agree that men are not as represented in the feminist movement as women, but I do think that it's the MRAs that are more reactionary because of feminism. They wouldn't have fought for men's rights because we had rights. The men's rights activists, from my perspective, are not arguing to dismantle stigma related to men's mental health. They're just saying that women have loads of power, and I don't like that.
Let me tell you the story about Karen DeCrow.
Sorry, can I just interject? That isn't actually true. I've spoken to the Tin Man, who's a very prominent men's advocate on this channel. He absolutely is trying to tackle the stigma of men's mental health. I also talked to Paul Elam, and he said that he's trying to tackle men's mental health too. So actually, that's not true. Anyway, Tim, you go on.
Yeah,
I'm just saying a lot of men's rights activists don't actually care. It's just reactionary to women. That's
sorry, have you actually heard
that's
any
your
men's
judgment, but I don't think it's true. Let me
Yes,
tell you
I
a story.
have.
A quick story about Karen DeCrow. Okay, she was president of the New York chapter of NOW, the National Organization of Women. It was back in 1990, and she was pro joint custody. She was very much a gender equalist, and she really took seriously the idea of true equality between the sexes. And so how was she embraced by this feminism that's so into gender equality? No, she was run out on a rail. Okay. You have this view of feminism that is so angelic or something. It's been a very perverse. The leadership has gone very dark. It has done awful things. Everywhere it goes, gender relations go right down the toilet. Everywhere it goes, it has a deeply divisive and poisonous effect on social fabric, on family, to the point where the birth rates have plummeted everywhere it goes. And And
Can I ask you a question?
while you may feel that you may feel that the reduction in birth rates is a good thing, but consider the gender dynamic where women and men are so at odds. They're not getting along well enough to breed. I mean, this is how deadly this men have the power, women are the victims belief system is.
Oh, I actually can't even remember what you said now. I just wanted to ask why, but I've forgotten what I even wanted to ask why too. It's we seem to just blame rather than what's the cause of why men are not why do men hold the power?
They don't. They hold the male power.
Sorry.
Women hold the female power.
What are those individual powers?
All right. So female power.
Is that being able to get,
if you won't interrupt, I'll run through them. So female power is comprised of things like beauty and sexual power, moral.
Yes,
authority,
I agree with that.
Motherhood power. Hold on, let me finish. Motherhood power. What? Presumed innocence. The greater powers to elicit empathy and inflict shame. This power to elicit empathy is the power that raises only female concerns to the level of major societal concerns.
It's
this
just
power to shame is a power where in matters of gender conflict and complaint, gender activism and advocacy, gender ideology, gender issues, gender studies, gender politics, gender anything, there is feminism, and then there is nothing. And this power to shame is what has maintained that ideological dictatorship, where men, rather than protesting, just hang their heads and go, oh, we're no good, we're no good. And these powers women have are invisible to us, but immensely influential. For example, as seen from a politicized male perspective, the so-called patriarchy is nothing more than men everywhere set in fierce competition in their efforts to perform, achieve, and succeed their way into having what women are empowered to demand of them. See, all these things are subject to reframe if you break out of this feminist ideological dictatorship and start looking at outside that box. There's a whole new world of truth and fact and reality that we're not seeing. And if we saw both sides, it becomes possible for woman and man to call it even and re-understand each other as equal partners in the human system that exert an equal overall force of influence and are thus equally responsible for outcomes, both good and bad. Now we go and take another look at every gender issue, but this time as matters of shared responsibility.
Can I ask a question? Because one of the things I'm struggling with the gender equality, gender equalism idea, and please tell me if I'm wrong, but I feel like it, in a way, it's saying we don't have to actually do anything to make change. We just
Thank you for saying that.
Right?
Thank you for saying that.
Okay, well, hang on. So I will. Sorry, but yeah, I want to hear your answer. I do want to hear your answer. But so I think from the just sort of communicating the anxiety, right? The anxiety of what a feminist or a woman might say in response to what you said. The anxiety being, you know, for hypothetical female feminist point of view, I'm locked in this box, I'm locked in this cage, right? I'm in this prison, and it's not, you know, you can say it's ideological, right? But but it's a lived experience. It's like I feel trapped, I feel underappreciated, I feel I don't have the same opportunities, I'm not being paid the same, I'm not being listened to and respected for the same. Yeah, right. This is the lived experience of the woman, right? That's what she's thinking. So if you as the gender equalist are saying no, actually you're wrong. Women have all these powers, you know, it's all there's this whole world out there of truth and power. You just have to see it. It's a bit like what's actually changing in this scenario for the woman, for their experience. That's my I genuinely want to know that.
Jana, can you let Tim respond, then you can comment. Tim, respond, please.
Okay, so yes, admittedly, women have what Camille Paglia called a victim-centered view of the universe, and there's even also instinctual elements to that, because women draw more empathy. Female complaint is more powerful. When males start complaining with other men, they'll be told, stop your bitching, meaning stop complaining the way women do. So so women have this power to elicit empathy, and both sexes work the powers they have in compensation for the powers they lack. And so one of the powers women have is that by complaining, by playing the victim, and by damseling, as it were, they draw a lot of protection, a lot of advantage in certain respects, in terms of charity. Come on, in terms of leniency, in terms of compassion, and historians that look into it can show you, like Martin Crevold and so on, can show you in detail, and I can show you in detail all these things. You know, like when a wife committed a crime, the husband went to jail. This was an epitome of a basic formula. Toward men, it's accountability sans compassion, which is ruthless. It's respecting men but not loving them. Toward women, it's compassion sans accountability, which is infantilizing. It's loving women but not respecting them. So only the male was held accountable, even though she was the one who committed a crime. You see, there's all this stuff, a whole other ocean of things, and we believe according to what we know. If all we know are the facts and truths of male power and female victimization, then of course, that's how are you going to feel about life?
Okay, I think Jana wanted to come in.
Yeah, I wanted to say, yeah, he brought up the point of whether or not we still have change to, if we just leave things as they are, or if we have to make changes. Absolutely, we have to make changes.
Yes.
And I think, yes, you would say to that woman who feels scared about all the things, okay, you have these fears, we need to fix your problems, but please also be open-minded that he has these problems. You have these, you lack power in this area, but he lacks power in that area. Just as Alex was talking about, he doesn't have the power to cry when he wants to cry. He doesn't have the power to open up emotionally. He doesn't have whatever powers it is that men don't have. She doesn't have certain power within whatever working world or whatever. So both of these things need to be addressed. Now, I wanted to go back to what he said about, do we just leave it as it is? I think what happens a lot, again, coming with the traditionalists, whatever, is that traditionalists do want to sort of leave it as it is, and they sort of fight to leave it as it is. Why? Because
that's what traditionalism is.
Exactly. That's what traditionalism is. They are seeing traditionalists, the actual gender roles and what feminists is fighting, as the fair, just, equal system. And especially if you come at them with a totally unequal message of just woman, how are they going to respond to that? It must, the response, there is no other response but you're absolutely wrong. Please leave me alone and leave traditionalism as it is. The message of egalitarianism is far more palatable to traditionalists. I have spoken to traditionalists and stuff like that. But anyway, sorry, I just wanted to address what he said with leave it as it is. Now, this is the problem. And then I have to make the same parallel, which I'm sorry, but I keep making this same parallel between, if you look at it like you are heterosexual, they are the other type of sexuality. Okay, there is a norm and there is a not norm. So the traditionalists tend to come a bit more from the norm. I'm not saying traditionalists are the majority of society, but maybe it's like 30%, but still they're a large block of people. And on the other side of it are people who are uncomfortable with the way in which patriarchy or the system is set up, or gender roles and all these things. And when we make changes, the changes have to include all of those people. They have to acknowledge every single. To do that, the only thing that is possible would be an egalitarian system, not a feminist. And so on. You know,
I thoroughly agree. And let me just very quickly address, no. Gender equalism is not an endpoint. It is a new beginning. It is a place from which to start.
It's kind of an endpoint.
It's a place from which to start all over. Only now we're not trapped in feminism. We're looking at a gender equalism. We're giving equality. We're not dividing humanity into man bad, woman good. There's no moral polarity here. Okay. Everybody joins as equals into gender equalism.
So
Alex and then Andrew, or Andrew then Alex.
Sorry, Alex. Do you mind? You go first?
Yeah, I literally just wanted to say you got Tim. You framed this as it's all natural. Women are nurturing. Women are this. Men, we needed men to be strong.
No,
when did I do that? I don't remember.
You've literally said.
I talked about the traditional system as having been appropriate in the brutal past when the primary objective for humans was to survive.
What I'm saying is,
so we divided up into male and female to fulfill roles. It was practical. It made sense back then.
Okay, so now there's nothing in the female. There's no female brain. There's no male brain.
Yeah, actually, there is. There's quite different.
No, I mean, the brain is created from birth.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, someone can write about it. Doesn't mean it exists.
It does exist. It's absolutely proven. Male and female brains differ structurally,
they differ in brain
and neurochemically.
They differ in brain
quite
a lot.
Can I ask a question about? So could I ask a question about meritocracy? So thinking about using an analogy of affirmative action. So affirmative action being when you give certain groups of people, I don't know what the best term is, but like more opportunities or like opportunities where they would normally not have those opportunities, right? And so we're talking about women, we're talking about people of color, all that stuff. And a lot of people think that's unequal because it's giving women and people of color more opportunities than their white male counterparts, right? Yeah. And there's this kind of idea of meritocracy. And like, I kind of feel like gender equalism is along the same lines. Some political groups, when they get into power, want to remove all of those affirmative action programs and say, no, we need meritocracy. We need equality of opportunity. Yes. But to me, again, it's this thing where we sort of go round and round in circles where it's saying, no, the point of the affirmative action was to create meritocracy. So by removing the affirmative action, you're making everything unequal again, right? That's the thing. So if I feel like my anxiety is... I can't continue this.
As long as you equate women with blacks...
No, I'm not. Well, I'm not.
You're calling them blacks.
I'm saying
gender and race are completely
as
different.
Affirmative action
they're both
as
social
a
constructs, though.
Tool of gender equality. And if you say we don't need affirmative action, we don't need to prioritize.
We may need it for race, but not for gender.
Well, okay.
No, I agree with what he said in the sense that I think also he's saying both sides want equality, right? One side is saying equality would be what I can't remember the name, but affirmative action. Yeah. And the other side is saying equality would be no affirmative action. And that's really important. Both sides want equality. So the question is not, do humans want equality? All sides and all humans want equality. The question is, how do we achieve this equality? And the difference is in what you think the reality is, right?
Exactly.
So exactly. So we need to listen to both sides' reality. First of all, we need to listen to the reality of the people who are saying affirmative action is fair, and we need to listen to the people who are saying affirmative action is not fair, and we need to come to some sort of common ground, right? Now, I have my views. I don't have a problem with affirmative action in wherever it's needed. So, and that would be based on the idea that there was some inequality that needs to be corrected. Okay, somebody else would have their other views saying there is no inequality that needs to be corrected. Let's not have. So this is the discussion. I don't know how exactly you're going to bring these two people together, but mostly, I guess it just takes more talking, dialogue, education, and so on. And this is the same problem within feminism and anti-feminism. You need to, both sides need to listen to each other and listen to the basis of why they think
I agree with that
it's unfair to women, why they think it's unfair to both men and women, why they think, and then
I agree.
You need to find common ground. What is the
there is a lot.
That's what gender equalism is all about.
Yeah. So Purely from my own experience with these conversations. So, and I'm not a woman, so, but purely just from what I've experienced, when we talk about
would you
feminism,
say feminists listen?
Sorry, can you let him finish, please? Go on, Andrew.
Sorry.
When we talk about feminism, when we talk about feminism, is like the pushback is like it's a dictatorial ideology. It's this, it's that. And what about men? And what about this? And it really feels like, it's, even to me, it feels quite aggressive, right? And I kind of get the impression that you feel that way about how feminists are talking to you as well. So so presumably it's a problem on both sides. Like the rhetoric on both sides is inflamed because
my question is, do feminists listen to traditionalists?
Well, no, of course they don't.
Why would we?
I mean, no.
Why would we?
I guess that's your point, right? Like, well, they don't, because they don't think traditionalists have anything useful to say. But that which is the point you're making.
Right.
So clearly, if we need to make change, feminists or whoever probably need to be slightly more willing to listen to the perspective of traditionalists or whatever you want to call the other group. But equally, I think on the other way around, don't fail to see your own kind of aggression in your own rhetoric as well. Anti-feminist rhetoric there's a lot of whataboutism, and I'm sure there is a lot of whataboutism with feminism as well. But it's like, if a woman comes to the table and says, here is my problem as a woman, here are all the things that women are experiencing and what women need. And the response isn't, okay, that's interesting, let's think about that. The response is, well, what about men? And what about men want? Right. And it just feels very unhelpful. And I guess that, like, that's
it kind of,
it's like we're not really like hearing each other.
I think it's the fact that feminism has tended to focus on women that I think
focus on women. What, just a wee little bit?
Very much focused on women.
Can I actually ask the panel a question?
Focused on women's issues.
Can I just ask a question based on what Andrew just said? Andrew, and I guess Alex as well, what would you guys think of the idea of non-feminist female advocacy? Because I have a subreddit on Reddit called Women's Advocates, which actually talks about women, and it's just all about women, but it's definitely not feminist. So what
you guys just have an ick. It's just an ick with the word.
Sorry, can you let me finish, please? So what do you think of the idea of something that is talking about women, that's promoting women, but isn't buying into the rhetoric that women have always been oppressed? We live in a patriarchy. It's not good to be a traditional female, that women are, there's a gender as a social construct. Like, what do you think of that? Almost like the idea of being pro-women, but not believing that women are victimized or that gender is a social construct, effectively.
I wouldn't want to join an unscientific subreddit.
Well, okay. So from my perspective, and given that I'm it's easy for me to say, but the more I've been speaking to people about anti-feminism, the more I am understanding that the patriarchy idea, like the reality or the sort of quote reality, is the issue, right? It's the framing of the problem which is really divisive and dividing people. And I would be very interested in sitting down and discussing, the female how to the female experience and how to make women's lives better in the world. And if the price of that is to kind of put to one side the idea of patriarchy for a minute and just be like, okay, well, let's just sit down and talk about this. Let's embrace this kind of idea of gender neutralism for the sake of like talking about women's issues, right? I would personally be okay with that. Okay. But my worry is, and I think feminism, again, I've said this a few times, but I think the worry is that you're losing sight of the problem, right? And I think a feminist would say that. I think they would say, I don't want to lose sight of the problem.
Of course they would say that. They're feminists.
And there might be, it's a kind of trust thing. It's like, I don't trust men or anti-feminists yet to give them the benefit of the doubt yet, right? Like, and to kind of let go of my idea of what's going on, because I don't want you to kind of manipulate me into letting go of this idea of patriarchy, because in my mind that's the problem and we need to fix the problem, and if we talk about anything else we're ignoring the problem. So I think there's a lot of
anxiety. I don't think anyone here is being manipulative just to make
no. I'm saying that's the anxiety, right? That I'm saying
I understand what you're saying, Andy.
like it's a lack of trust.
I understand it as well.
In the whole, but I feel like that would be a positive. Ultimately, I think it would be a positive.
Well, I want to just say as well, sorry, I will not talk too much, but I think that a big part of why I have a problem with feminism is patriarchy theory, because patriarchy theory is basically the root of feminist theory. I don't think you can be a feminist without believing in patriarchy theory. So the idea of women's advocacy is rejecting patriarchy theory and also rejecting the idea that gender is a social construct and that men and women are not biologically different. And it's about talk, because there's a lot of women, I think, who would really, and men who would support that, who'd support, being pro-female without saying that there's a patriarchy and effectively, promoting misandry. So I just put the link on Women's Advocates.
I mean, I wouldn't be welcome in there anyway because I'm a guy.
No, there's men there. There's lots of men.
Are there men there? Okay.
Of course. It's just about.
The thing is, Serena, like the problem is that you're removing. It's like the values, isn't it? It's like there's research into, you can change people's minds about things, but when they're not attached to their values. But when you have values, it's very hard to shift people's values, right? It's very hard to persuade people intellectually to let go of their values, right? Because it's kind of asking them to let go of their integrity. And I think for feminism, like you said, patriarchy is the absolute root tenet of the feminist kind of idea. So it's you're asking the feminist to say, disregard your entire philosophy and come over to my side and let's talk about.
I'm not really saying that.
Come to the middle. Just join us in the middle. Call it even. Just come to the middle.
But maybe
I'm saying it's hard to do that.
I understand what Andrew's doing.
I'm not saying it's the wrong thing to do. I'm just saying it's hard to do that. Right?
Absolutely,
it's going to be difficult to get people.
But maybe part of the problem is that everybody is really just being too selfish. Like everybody is looking at it only from their perspective and only considering. Like, because I feel like feminists don't really acknowledge the viewpoint of the other side. And I'm sure that feminists probably feel that we don't acknowledge their viewpoint. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because as you say, like you said with the, like how they would be scared. I get that because historically, traditionalist people have dominated and done pretty horrible stuff. So it would make sense for those who don't fit into that to be afraid. That fear is real, but traditionalist people don't even really acknowledge that is a thing. We just don't know because we're not in the situation. And I think the problem is all sides and feminists operate as if they are the only viewpoint, as if that is like the only thing that they say. Yes, all women, as if all women behave or think like that, as if all women are upset with patriarchy. When it's clear that, I mean, it's not like that.
Yeah, it's fair. Like again, like I can't speak for women, but I think your point is fair.
I just want to mention that the way Tim refers to an ideological dictatorship, it's a slippery slope because there's an actual dictatorship in China, and that's you can speak out against feminism. You're not going to be put in prison for doing that.
Well, they're trying to change that. They're trying to make it hate speech. There are
feminists
powers
are never going to make it so that you
it's
can't
not
criticize
so easy
feminism.
to speak out against feminism. It's
you can. The state is not going to reprimand you. You can. We have
some social media sites for having anti-feminist views.
That's a private.
You can be fired from your job.
That's not the state. That's a private company. You guys are free market cap. Well, I'm not, but you guys are like more capitalist inclined. So you can criticize a private company if you want to, but that's not the state. We need to realize that dictatorship does imply state power, and that
if the state is enforcing feminism, the private companies.
No, the state is not enforcing feminism.
I would say the state.
Well, to some extent, it is. Politicians are forever speaking from a feminist perspective. Obama declared himself a super feminist. He was on the
Well, that's
cover of
because
Ms.
maybe he was,
Magazine,
okay?
opening up his shirt as if he was
What-
Superman.
What I'm
declaring
saying
himself a
is,
super
in
feminist.
China, you can't criticize the government. In this country, you can criticize feminism, and the government won't come down on you.
So this, so what's your
Well, it
point?
sort of depends
I
on
don't know.
how. It depends on how you do it, right? Like, I think the point is, you can criticize feminism in a useful way, or you can be you can do it in a really, like, yeah, it's the point about hate speech as well. It's like, and the misogyny and all that stuff, right? Like, you can push back on feminism and reassert all those traditional gender roles in a very aggressive and reactive and reductive way.
Wait a minute,
right? That's something that people can. That's something people do, and
people from what we call the right.
Well, yeah, wherever, yeah, like a lot of people do that, and so, and that, so. I don't know. I've lost the point I was trying to make. Sorry.
Before we close up, I just want to say one thing as well. So traditionalism is a very loaded term, because what tradition are we talking about? If we're talking about Western Christianity, that's the last 2,000 years. If we're referring to that kind of traditionalism, fine. But when people say traditionalism, there's been so many different types of societies and cultures and customs throughout we can't even sit down here and go through the entirety of human history. So
it's
I don't think
patriarchy, isn't it? That's the thing.
In your view, I don't think we can say traditionalism is a catch-all term for the whole of human history, because the traditional values
it kind of is.
China versus, it's not really though, because the traditional values in China are different from the traditional values.
But they're still traditional values. They're still traditional values.
I think
it's not to that culture. They're cultural specific.
Okay, there are subsets of tradition.
But I think, Zarik, this is the point feminism is trying to make. And I know you're not gonna accept this, but the theme throughout traditionalism in lots of different cultures, maybe not all cultures, but lots of different cultures, majority of cultures, the theme that runs through them is patriarchal systems. Women in subservient positions.
That's what you've been trained to see them at. But I see a matrix census. I see a female consensus, a sisterhood that is always applied and equal over all.
Okay, Tim, you've been trained to believe the way you believe. Doesn't mean
I wasn't trained. I invented it.
It doesn't mean it's a dictatorship.
I didn't learn this in a classroom. I
didn't learn this in a classroom.
I didn't.
Wow. You haven't. Okay, look. Let's not be like. Let's just make this point as well.
But traditionalists see patriarchy as equality. Keep that in mind. Traditionalists see patriarchy. What you are calling patriarchy, what you are calling matriarchy. Traditionalists see it as equality. So,
yes.
Yeah, because they argue about
and that's the big rift, isn't it? Like, that's the big rift. It's saying, like, because gender equalism and traditionalism do share that in common, where you're both saying women have roles, men have roles. Men and women have different qualities and different powers and different, things, right? And so
you're absolutely
we're all contributing together.
Right, and you're absolutely right to ask for it to change, because what you may see is that you want some of the powers that women have, and you want to give women some of the powers that men have. That's absolutely right and good, and I don't think anybody can argue against that. But how the argument is made to traditionalists is not like that. The argument is made as what you want is unfair. What you want is unequal. And it's unequal because women.
Right. But the nuance...
So it's bizarre.
But the nuance, Jana, is there is a common theme, and whether you want to see this as natural or benign or what have you, there is a common theme throughout traditionalist structures, which are men go to work, men are in leadership roles, and women are at home and women raise children. let's take all the value. Let's take the judgment. Let's take the value judgment away from that for a second and just say that is
wait a minute. You're value judging the world of women. You're not getting how expansive and important the world of women is.
Women have always worked historically as well. I'm really sorry, but there's a lot of historical inaccuracies. And I had Paul Elam on recently, and he was saying that actually that's not actually true at all. Women actually have always worked, especially working class women.
Unpaid work
yes, they have. So, for example, during the medieval England, women worked in education, women worked as governesses, women were teachers. A lot of women worked in nursing, and textiles.
Right. Okay.
I think, Andrew, you're thinking of the white middle class America 50s as tradition, but that's really not.
Yeah, that's not what. That's like one period of human history. It's like 10 years. It's not even. Wasn't even like that. It was like that for like a minority, a very well-to-do upper middle class white American.
White middle class America.
Yes, because everyone except for the wealthy were peasants. That's the reason.
Well, it was
literally. That's
I know that the past was brutal. The past was brutal.
But in terms of making things, if you want feminists to come to the table, if you want feminists to sit down at the
I don't necessarily want them. I want more like the mainstream. The feminists are free to join, but
if you want to bring people to the table under and accept into gender equalism, right? Yeah. If you want to make that palatable to feminism, to feminists, if you want more people to come into gender equalism,
they're going to be like Cassie J, and they're going to do a documentary where her intention is to slam the manosphere.
This is it. This is what I'm saying. You're not being particularly inviting here.
She learns the other half of gender reality, and then she says at the end of the film, "I can no longer call myself a feminist."
So I would
call herself a gender equalist.
That Tim is referring to. It's called The Red Pill, and it's by Cassie J. And also, Andrew mentioned earlier something very important, which we kind of talked about before. I can't remember if it was on a call before that, but there seems to be two large types of anti-feminists. There's anti-feminists like Cassie J or Jana Xiolier or Tim, people who are talking about gender equalism, men and women should be equal but different. And then there's the kind of, we'll say, Andrew Tate kind of anti-feminism, which seems to be the more mainstream idea of
that's actually anti-feminism.
In the media view, a lot of anti-feminists do not support Andrew Tate. Please don't make crass statements like that. Andrew Tate is a horrible, horrible man. Most people I have talked to who are actually most people in general, even people who are not feminists, say Andrew Tate's an awful person. That is a very extreme, caustic, crass.
Okay, can I? Okay,
horrible. Just extreme.
We both have a problem. Both sides have a problem. Both sides have a problem. My side, or me and Andrew's side, is you have this. The representation is that women are hating on men a lot more. And that's the representation of feminism that you guys get.
Currently,
the anti-feminism, the anti-feminism, it gets mostly represented by the manosphere and Andrew Tate. And I know that that's not what it is for you.
I can't help that.
I know it's not that, but we both sides have a problem here with
that's what this entire discussion is trying to.
But what is the biggest group of anti-feminists in your opinion? I'm asking to the feminists. What would you say the largest group of anti-feminists is?
I have no.
My experience would be the manosphere.
So I think anyone out there, because we need to close up soon, anyone out there who is interested in hearing about a kind of more middle ground anti-feminist perspective, I would recommend starting with this book. This is called Free Women, Free Men by Camille Paglia. Camille Paglia is a libertarian feminist. So she actually does identify as a feminist, but she's not really, I would say she's an individualist feminist, which one might say is not a real feminist.
She's an equalist.
I would say she's feminist in name, but equalist in action. So
I need to read this feminist book. I'll do that.
Well, I would say if you want to start with any really good, wholesome critique, Free Men by Camille Paglia. I absolutely love this book. It's amazing. She's very humorous.
She's great.
Uses a lot of humorous language, and that's a good place to start. Anyway, we've come to the end of the discussion now. Thank you, everybody, for watching and tuning in. Thank you, everybody, for partaking in this discussion. These are very, very good, interesting, intellectual people. I'm very honored to have everybody here on my show today. And I will be live again in 2 days on June the 11th, which is Thursday, as it is my birthday. So I'll be streaming by myself, 6 p.m. UK time, which I'll be announcing on my channel community tab. So thank you, everybody. This is the
Thanks,
Rational
everybody.
Female.
Thank you.
And yes, until then, goodbye.